We're working on it. Can you hear me now? Okay. Loud and clear, or do I need to adjust it any? A little loud. Okay. Well, I'm right up next to it. It'll probably be all right when I'm working here. Okay. Is that still too loud now? Hey, like I said, this is a work in progress. Hello, Roland. I'm drinking water today to try to keep my voice longer. No, it would never be a project that I'm involved in if I first try. I think we're 100% ahead where we were Wednesday, so that's a good point. Okay, so I'm just going to give everybody a few minutes to finish showing up here, just in case. Sound seems good. Okay, that's what we want to hear. It's tough to have to have do everything. Crash, bang. I think my chat is running a little behind my picture. I've got it broadcasting on a TV so I can read. So sometimes it may take me a second to respond to you. So what projects are everybody working on themselves? Are we working on anything while we're watching, or sitting there eating our sandwich, or just twiddling our thumbs? Ooh, he used the word that will not be spoken. Okay. I hate cleaning up 3D models. That is my bane. No, we're not going to ban it. Not yet. My very first 3D printer was a wax printer, and it printed in a two different materials, and you could submerge it into basically mineral oil warmed up. It would melt away one material and leave the other, and they were perfectly smooth and perfectly ready to go or cleaning. I miss that printer. I'm assuming the plastic stuff rolling. Hey there, Tiger Wraith. How are you doing? Up here. Okay, well, we're going to give it just a couple of more minutes and then we'll get started. I've got 2 hours to kill, so I think we will be fine here. Hopefully not too much dead air. Hey, Michael, thanks again for the Rex, the flame things. Those are really cool. Well, they told me I was too loud earlier, so I cut my voice down a little. Hey, sir, thanks for stopping by. Me, too loud? Never. Of course. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what we got to do. Let's get started here and build some terrain. Let's talk a little bit about my philosophy with terrain. There's 2 ways to go. You can build it functional, or you can build it realistically. Obviously, what I try to do is get kind of in the middle here. I want it to be functional. Cuts down on arguing. It makes it easier to set up. Just everything that goes with it. And what works for one game doesn't work always for the next game if you try to go too realistic with it. So every once in a while, I break down and build something really unique. But for the most part, I try to stay kind of what you see here. On top of that, there's 2 ways to build this. Is you can either build it in levels so that you can stack them and move them around, or you can build them in thicker pieces, or you can even glue it all together if that's what you want, and make for some kind of one-of-a-kind designs and everything. I'm going to show you both ways tonight on how I do it and go from there. The good thing too about this styrofoam, when you make styrofoam terrain, is you're not limited to making it round. So for the Battletech guys, the Hex players out there, sorry, some of this dirty, but you can cut them in hex shapes. These have been well played, so haven't been updated and cleaned up for a while. But it's super easy to make them however you want to make them. I think these are set up for 2-inch hexes. And what I try to do is anytime I'm cutting hex shapes, I kind of put a basic pattern down on the styrofoam first. And I try to always make sure that at least 2 edges of a hex is showing, or enough that you know where they are at. Cuts down on arguing. You're not limited to green pieces. You can build them in brown. You can build them in gray. Got a gray piece up here with me, but with that. So anyway, so lots of different ways you can build these. And we'll go from now. We'll start off with just a basic one first, which means we start off with a piece of styrofoam. I use the blue styrofoam for 3 reasons. And depending on where you live, how it works, the blue styrofoam is available through Lowe's. Here in the US, the pink styrofoam is available through Home Depot here in the US. The reason I use blue is because it's a little cheaper. It's more of an off brand as opposed to being like Corning or whatever the pink stuff is, whatever the Pink Panther is. I've also noticed that the blue styrofoam has less fibers in it. They put, I'm assuming it's fiberglass. I mean, it doesn't cause you to itch or anything. It's got little stringy fibers in it, I guess, as part of their insulation purposes. It seems to me like the blue has less than the pink. The other thing is, since I build most of this for CAV, most of our elevation levels are set 3/4 of an inch, like so. I like to use, because you can get it in 3/4 and 1.5 inches, so that does a lot of your work for you. For whatever reason, the pink stuff, Corning, they stopped doing it in 3/4. I think there's a 1/2 inch sheet, there's an inch sheet, and maybe 1.5 inches. But whatever reason, they don't do 3/4 anymore, so that kind of messed me up. So the first thing that you want to do when you're building a hill is you want to kind of have an idea of your shape. And it can be as small or as big as you want. You'll see as we cut it that kind of sometimes have to cut the piece depending on how you want it. These knives are great at styrofoam. As long as you keep them sharp, keep them long, be careful with them because they will cut off pieces. But you can take big sheets and cut them down, get you into a basic size before you get too started. So first thing I do is, like I said, I start with shape. I try to be, you can be as clean, as round, kidney bean shapes are always kind of good pieces. You want to take, I use a Sharpie here, and get my basic size. So that's where I'm going to start with my hill that I think that I'm going to start with. Now, the next thing that we need to talk about are hot wire cutters. That's what I use. This is from, I'm assuming, is a Chinese company called Proxon. You can get these on Amazon. I have purchased Woodland Scenics. I have purchased Hot Wire Foam Factory ones. I have purchased 2 or 3 other brands. This is the best one I've ever found, bar none. The wire that comes with it's a little thin, so I've sconded with a piece from another thing that I had. I think that's probably hot wire foam. These use nickel chromium. That's the wire that you have to use these, because basically what you're doing is you're creating a dead short. So if any other kind of wire tends to burn, you'll see it get red, and then it's ping and off it goes. So nickel chromium, that's the same wire that they use RC cars, not RC cars, airplanes, for guide wires and stuff in there. So any hobby store that does airplane stuff like that will have that. You can set this in there. You can set it as tight as you want to set it. The tighter, the better. There's that much more control. Cause a problem. Got to be something. I used it all night. Come apart. So this one plugs into a transformer, has a trigger, has a power control that you can turn up, turn down. I think I've got it turned completely up to the highest because I have a little thicker wire on there. All right, so we're ready to start cutting. the first cut that you want to make is you're trying to cut the piece out. You want to come in and start cutting. I go to the inside of the line, and then I kind of zigzag a little. This, I'm just kind of giving it some character right now. Like so. I do it inside the line so that it cuts off, because sometimes you see it through the paint, the marker. The other thing that you want to be careful with is you want to try to, and it might be something that you want to try, but you want to try to go with the angle that you're cutting. So if you're cutting this way, you want to try to keep your wire straight, because what happens is if you start cutting this way to the side, you can get some weird slopes that aren't going the right way. So you want to watch that. You can angle it as much as you want to right now. If you want to angle it in, start putting a little bit more of a slope on it. And needs to say too, when you're cutting this stuff, it does produce a little bit of vapor. As long as you're in a well-ventilated area or have a fan blowing or something moving some air, I don't think you'll have any problems with it. Maybe with allergies, some people with allergies or something. I've never had a problem with it, and I've been doing it for 40 years, so I haven't dropped dead yet. Again, like I said, you can angle it as much as you want. Trying to go for a slope. You don't want it. To me, as you change around, this is what makes the shapes look more natural. So there's really no right or wrong to this. It's just a matter of preference. You know, and that could be why I'm more of a creative person. It could be that I have smoked so much styrofoam over the years that it LSD or something puts me in that special place. Okay, so basically you see, and here's another piece I cut last night. I just basically kept it more up and down straight. But you can see how we've got our basic shape for our heels, and we've got our stuff here. Now, after you get to this, now you're going to start, yeah, for Halloween tombstones, pretty much. Next, I like to come in and start cutting off corners, and I don't try to be too consistent with it. Do it in pieces. So again, so you get some not so natural shapes. You can cut it off. The main thing, you know, and it depends too on what you're making it for. You know, you generally nothing will be standing on this part of it. So if you're need to worry about room, make sure that you do. There's some of the fibers I was talking about. And needs to say, have you a work spot where you've got a box or something where you can throw this stuff in, because you will have pieces of styrofoam everywhere. People that know me and you work on this stuff, I like lots of room. Because I make terrain like I cook. Very, very messy. No, there's some fiber that they put in them for to help, because it's insulation. I looked it up one time. I forget what. It's not fiberglass. It's just some kind of a cotton fiber or something that they put in it to make it more, give it a better R rating for insulation. All right, so after I kind of cut off the tops, you can even kind of go in and cut out some chunks. Give it a little more. A little more life. So you want to watch too when you're kind of cutting that. Make sure, try not to get undercuts, because they're a pain in the butt to paint. So if you see where you've got some area where it's going to be hard to get a brush to or something, just go in with the deal and go from there. Now, especially a lot of the Warhammer guys, you will see that maybe they'll take something like this and then they will go in and start carving it and get kind of some more crazy rock shapes. You can do that, but it takes a lot longer, pain in the butt. And I think at the end of the day, you know, it might, maybe it looks better. I don't know. It's totally up to you what you. I just like to go quicker, because usually when I make terrain, I make 50 pieces at a time. So anything that I can do to speed that up, you can. I have used a soldering iron. They are very hard to control. I used to do some fantasy boards, and soldering irons were great for putting ruts in the roads. So I'm not real wild about using soldering iron. Now, the nice thing that is about this stuff is because it's so dense, it is very easy to hold on to shapes. So you can actually take blades and scribe lines into your terrain. You can take a ruler and cut along it and get you a really true straight edge. Proxxon also makes a table unit that has an arm that comes out with an up and down wire, kind of like a jigsaw, a powered jigsaw. There's a lot of guys out there that make MDF jigs that go on it that they go crazy. If you look at some of the foam wargaming forums on Facebook, some of the stuff that that they make is incredible. I have done that too with the butter knife heated with a little hand torch for a quick something. You can also, if you, especially if it's, you know, an alien world, you can take a hot gun and blow a little hot air gun and hair dryer and blow on it, and closer or farther to kind of melt the edges, smooth the edges down. Non-acrylic paint will melt this stuff, but it doesn't melt it to the point that it just melts away. So you can take like some rattle trap spray paint and spray it, and it gets kind of a weird alien bubbly look, and you can paint over it. The other thing that's really good about this, and I don't have any with me or I would show you, and this comes more from me watching the guys do the fantasy stuff, but they make all kinds of rollers now for doing basing and everything, where you can get stone patterns. You can get, there's thousands of patterns that they have out there, different kind of rolls and stuff like that. And you can actually roll onto this, and it will embed that pattern into the stuff. So especially if you're doing some fantasy stuff and you're trying to build a cobblestone road, or you're trying to build brick walls, you're trying to build, I mean, there's all kinds of different roles out there. Another thing, if you're trying to build fantasy, or you're wanting to try to build things with little bricks or something like that, another good trick is as you cut all your bricks and stuff and you want to kind of give it that pattern, put it in a bag with some rocks and shake it up real good. And those rocks will round the edges off and put a nice rough pattern on it. Lots and lots of stuff you can do with styrofoam. It's great. You can go back and, you know, if you want to cut, you want to have a little bit of a channel or something, even cut this way. So if you're trying to put a river or you're trying to put a road or something like that. And the hotter it is, the faster it'll burn. So you can actually, if you turn the heat down a little bit and go a little slow, say, yeah, the green stuff rollers, that's what I'm talking about. They were all those, if they're harder than the styrofoam, they will leave that pattern in the styrofoam and stay, as long as you press it in there good and deep. But when you're trying to get a little more accurate or something, you can turn these down, so you're not burning nearly as hot. You just need to go a lot slower, because you're not gonna, but it allows you to be a little smoother. So lots of things you can do with styrofoam. Okay, so now I've got my piece cut. I'm ready to go to my next step. But the thing that you need to look at is, if you are planning on gluing multiple pieces together and making a bigger hill, you want to make sure you start from the top going down. Now that sounds kind of counterintuitive, but that's what we need. So here's a piece that I cut last night. So I'm thinking I want to make a bigger tower piece. The reason that you work from the top down is so that you have control over the edges, okay? Because what happens if you go the other way and then you start cutting slopes and everything into it, you end up screwing it up. So in this case, let's say I want to build this next hill. So what I do right quick is I give it a quick little bit of a trace, just so I know where the other one, where it set it, like that. Okay, I know where my basic shape is. Now from here, you want to decide how much space, how big the hill. Of course, I've got a smaller piece here, but you could have it as big, because you want to make your line where you're going to have the next piece. So in this case, I'm going to come all around here, and now this line here will guide you as you're cutting. So if you cut closer to this line, you're not going to have nearly as much space when you start messing with it. So take that into account. So now we're going to go in here, do our first cut. Tip here. Like I said, the more you cut in, the more space you're losing. You glue it to anything you want. This stuff will glue to everything. We'll get to glue too. Glue's half of the battle here. Believe me, every brand of glue I have tried. For people that don't know me as much as some of the other folks here, I started doing this when I was 15 years old. I'm 52. Been making terrain for a long time. I've made lots of battle boards for different companies over the years. I've done commissions, done stuff that's gone into a museum. Make it look as real as I want to. Say, most wargaming is not. Yeah, well, I feel it. Time is catching up. But I don't mind. I'm here. Skipping Taco Tuesday for you guys. So again, we know we're pretty close to our edge here, so we're not going to cut in too much. Kind of rough it up. Okay, so now you can go back here. get too crazy here because I know I'm close to my edge there. Generally, I'd go with a little bigger piece so that I wasn't fighting it so hard, but work with. Styrofoam piles already piling up on me. Rows. I really like when I'm doing like tips or stuff jutting out, you can really come in here and back and back, show some of the ground underneath it. Cool look. And I hope everybody's taking notes. There will be a test later. Okay. So now we can come back here and take our original piece. Ragglies, and line it back up with our original. Voila. That gives you a 2-story hill. And you can just keep adding to that. You can keep going as long as you want to go until you run out of space. So you can make them as big or start smaller, however you want to do them. You'll need to take into consideration too, though, of when you build hills this way, it does make it a little trickier when it comes time to grass them and like that. What I tend to do, not as perfect of a look, but before I glue all this together, if I'm doing multiple pieces like this, I stack. If I'm going to glue it, I still go ahead and just grass it first, get them all done, then come back and set them on there and glue them. It's just so much easier than to try to, on this kind of piece, it's small enough that it's probably not as bad, but on bigger pieces, it can be a pain trying to fit it in there. The way too that I play the game, and this kind of helps you too when you're deciding what you want to do, is I always consider, so like here, I've got just a little bit of space, but that will show as green later than we grass them. Now, in CAV, you can climb one level at a time. So if he was going from here to here, he couldn't do that because that's a 2-level slope. But there's a little bit of grass. I always let them use that as a 1 level, but they can't stop. They can't stay on it. So in this case, he could go spend 2 points to go up, 2 points to go here and stand. He could go 2 points, but if he can't stand, he can't stay there. So that's the way I play. So that way you can get even a little use out of just a little piece. Have a great big area. You can 1, 2, 3, 4 have him up here. Same thing going down. As long as there's a little bit of green, I let him go ahead and go. All right. Now, a couple other things to take into consideration when you're building. If you want to build thicker levels, you have to either use thicker styrofoam or you have to start gluing them together. I like to glue them together because then it's easy to look at them later and say, oh, that's a level 2 hill or that's a level 3 hill or whatever. The other thing that you need to do, kind of have to do a little pre-work with, is if you want pieces to have level 2 slopes on part of it, but level 1's in other part. In this case, you have to glue them together first. Or I guess you don't have to, they just don't look as good because you need to cut this all at one time. If you try to cut this at two different parts and try to line them up, it doesn't always work out so good. So in this case here, I already have cut this part here. Then I glued this on and let that set up so that I can build it later. Now, talking about glue, we'll go back to our two pieces. The best glue that I have found to glue styrofoam terrain is Gorilla Clear Glue. And you want to make sure that it is the non-expanding, because they have non-expanding and expanding. If you do the expanding glue, you're not going to like what you get, because it pushes the pieces together and you'll end up with a big gap. The best thing about this kind of glue is it does not take air to dry. It dries, it cures on its own. If you try to use Elmer's glue or something like that and you put that in there and it gets airtight, the glue that's in here never dries. And you may have a piece that sits there for 2 days and you think that it's ready to go and you grab it and never had a chance to set. Gorilla Glue is also water activated. So another thing that you can do is when you're ready to glue is you can take a damp cloth, wipe both sides, right, like so. You don't have to make it wet, just enough to give it a little bit of moisture. That will help it dry, cure faster. The second thing that you want to make sure that you do is you don't put it in so thick that you have great big lines of it. I always try to, you don't have to do the whole thing. So I try to spread it out a little, okay? Put big ribbons on. I'll show you what. You can go close to the edges. This stuff's pretty good. So you're not right up against the edge of stuff. So once I've got it on there, bring it back up, put it down. And then you want to have something heavy to put on it, let it sit to dry. The reason that you want to do that is because this stuff comes in 4x8 sheets. It tends to curl, and that curl stays in these pieces, and depending on where you cut it from, especially on the bigger pieces, you get the curl. So you want to make sure you have something heavy set down on it to keep it good and flat. You want to make sure that if you do put something heavy on it, that you put a piece of cardboard or something to spread it out a little bit so that you don't, if you've got little marks on the bottom of whatever you put it on there, so that the marks don't show up in your, because that will happen. It will press in there. Hi, Jeff. How are you doing, sir? Okay, so back to our earlier pieces where we were looking at some level 2s. This is the reason why you do not put the glue on super thick. Because if you have to come back and cut it later and you have these big ribbons of glue, this thing has to cut through those. And it will, but it's a pain. So you want to, the smoother you spread it out, the better it makes it easy. So again, I'm going to look here. I've decided I want to have this piece come out. So I want it to end here, and I'm going to have a level 2 around, end up down there. So I'll go ahead and do my initial cut again. Turn it back up. I like it good and hot. like I said, I try to keep the cut going with the direction of the line. I don't get really weird overhang. Yeah, we're getting up here into our level 2 stuff. Since that's all glued together now, when I cut it, cutting both at once. This makes for a so much cleaner. Looks like it's all one piece. You don't have anything overhanging. Like I said, I like using it in the levels because once I paint it, you'll barely be able to see that. But I know that that's a level 2. Trying to keep it all on the camera. But if I had any big old chunks of glue in there, fighting it, and you get this line is not as clean. Gap where you can't kind of glue. Voila, I've got a level 2, one piece. Back in and do my. But because I did that other part earlier, because most of the time on most of the angles you can't get the wire back in there. So by having it pre-cut already, I don't have to worry about that. And I'm paying attention, so if you have any questions or need me to go over something again or slow down, or please let me know. Reason why my kids hate me. Cleaning something. Okay, damn it, you can't just do it. And if you're stuck at home, what a great time to be building terrain. Hi there. All right. So there's our level 2, 2 levels. Got a little bit over there to work, but the back of it is all nice level 2 cliff facing. You can slope it as much as you want, keep it straight up as you want, then you're all good. Now, then we can go back. Here's our 2 pieces I just glued together because I wanted a level 2 piece. Shape. Make this all rock. And you just come in and do the same thing you do with the level 1s. Might give it a little more slope if you want it to come out a little bit on them. So, sorry, I'm right-handed. So much planning. Yeah, you can do that. I build quite a few fortresses that you want to do the door. Show you a couple of tricks here I've used. Yeah, you can incorporate anything you want into these. I mean, it gets a little trickier. And it depends on how clean you want it to look. Now this will be a good piece to actually show you sparks. Work something like that in there. That's actually where the razor makes. I really like level 2 tall stuff where you can really go in there. You want to make pillars, if you make plateaus, stuff like that. Makes so much nicer pieces. Okay, there's my little skull plateau. All right, so let's say I don't have a piece here with me, but let's say that I had like a flat resin door or a piece like that I was trying to put in. You can, depending on how clean you want to get it, but you can kind of start with this here. Generally what I would try to do is I would measure my door, kind of give me an idea of where I wanted it. So, and again, if you're trying to build a natural door, if you want it to have more lines around it, or that it's cleaner, you have to go at it different ways. But at least this way I can build cut off like so, that I can start in here. Now, and it depends on the angles, but now you can come in with your knife, be a lot more accurate. Gotta get a little saw in motion. Start cut. And I can come back in here and go cover deep. So again, be very careful. These are very sharp. Go however deep that you need to go, and then you come back here and get you a little more blade out. You're not worried about the bottom. There's not going to be a lot that you can see down there anyway. But you can cut that back. I'm not going to get as pretty with it as I would if I was doing one for by getting it deeper in there, you can just cut it back. So at this point now, you could glue that piece in there. If you were trying to get, you know, if you wanted to look a little more with rock, you could come in here and round the edges up a little bit and back a little bit. But you really have to work with the knife because your hot wire doesn't work as good. Now, Hot Wire Foam Factory and a couple of them make a little rod so long that you can use as a hot wire thing. I haven't had a lot of luck with them. They tend to stick them in and they just melt you a big hole. Your mileage may vary. But also if I wanted it to have a little more straighter look or something, or I wanted to make it look more man-made, I could come back in with some little pieces of styrene strips or something and glue around the edge, and that'll give it, basically trim it out like you would a door in your house. Does that kind of answer that question, Sparks? Okay, so we have got what brand? These are Proxon. They are a Chinese. I don't know that they're a knockoff because I don't see anybody else that has these. But I'm sure they're made in China. But as I told him earlier, I have tried Woodland Scenics. I have tried Hot Wire Foam Factory. I've tried all of them. This is the one I keep coming back to. It's tough made. It's easy to adjust because you want to keep this wire tight. It's just an all-around good unit. Like I said, they also make a table, like a jigsaw version, that there's a lot of companies that are making little MDF jigs and stuff that goes with them. But this foam is from Home Depot. Not Home Depot, Lowe's, I'm sorry. You can get the pink stuff at Home Depot. I don't like the pink stuff like I like the blues. I like the blue a lot better. The pink looks the same, but it seems like it costs more to me. And because I use 3/4 inch sheets, the pink does not come in 3/4 inch sheets anymore for some reason. The blue took over the deal. All right, take a little drink break here for a second, and then we are going to get to finishing these. It goes from 0 to whatever it goes instantly. You pull that trigger, and it's cutting. It's short enough. It puts enough of a current through there that it gets hot quick. I think that the wire that came with this was either too thick or too thin. I can't remember for sure. So I changed out the wire. I don't remember what exactly this is. I'm pretty sure this is actually a wire from a Hot Wire Foam Factory cutter. But you're looking for nickel chromium. Make sure it's nickel chromium wire. And you'll just find what works for you. If you go too thick, it takes it longer to heat up. Doesn't cut as clean. If you go too thin, it gets too hot and breaks every time you turn around. Especially on their table unit, the wire is way too thin. Give me a second here. Stretch my legs. Yeah, that gar I bought, I'm sure you're looking on Amazon. That's where I found them. They stock them here in the U.S., so it's pretty much a day or two shipping if you have Prime. Okay, so the next thing that we need to worry about is painting these. Now, something that you do want to take into account is if you are building and trying to get a little fancier with it and you want to put some rock on these, you need to decide when you're going to do it. You can put it on before you paint it. You can put on it after you put your base coat on, or you can put it on after you put the grass on. I always put it on after the grass. Just, it all fits together better. When I go back and paint this, the paint will soak into the edge a little bit and it'll make the grass look like smaller rock, and it just does a better job. But it's totally up to you. Again, it's just how much work you want to make for you. But if you want to, especially if you're building single pieces and you know where everything's going to go, you can put some of this in. And then when you paint it, that helps seal it. If you put the brown over it. So again, it's strictly how you want to do it. I prefer to do it this way after I've already. Now, what I use for rock is, this is a oil dry that you can get at O'Reilly's or something like that. It's basically ground up clay. But it comes in lots of unusual little shapes and everything. You can also use kitty litter. I wouldn't recommend using a spray can to paint this. This styrofoam reacts even to the Rust-Oleum brands or whatever. They're supposed to be safe for plastic. It melts this. It always will. You can get an effect, a different look out of it, but at least for your base coat and for putting grass on, you do not want to use rattle trap. It just doesn't work. They can say that somebody's figured out the way to do it, but I'm here to tell you it ain't gonna work long term. You can use kitty litter. It's basically the same thing, other than I think they put smelly stuff in it. The problem with kitty litter is they do not get all the dust out of it. So when you go to use it, it gets very dusty, where it seems like the dryall is oil dry. So you can get like a 5-pound bag of this. And I have literally been using that bag for 10 years. So, and it's cheap. I think I paid $dollars for it. So you can go buy all that fancy rock and stuff that they sell at the hobby stores, but for that same $6 that you get a thing like this, you can get a 5-gallon, and if you really want to do it, it's great. What I like about it too is it comes in different shapes already. You'll see all the guys on hobby channels when they're doing stuff for trains and stuff, is they'll buy 3 different kinds and mix them together. You don't have to do that. These are already in shapes. They look like little boulders. They're not. Some of the gravel that you get at the hobby stores are very uniform, pellets. So like I said, you just can't go wrong with it. The best thing about this too is this is where you can use your Elmer's glue. It's oil dry. If you go into any auto repair place, AutoZone, O'Reilly's or whatever, they will have a bag. If you can't find it, ask them where they're oil dry. And that's what it is. It's some kind of gypsum or clay or something, activated clay, but it's just holds paint. It looks good. You're basing minis and you want to have a little rock pile, this is great. This is where I use Elmer's glue. I like to use this ProBond Advanced because it dries clearer and dries faster. It is more expensive, and you have to be careful if you don't use it a whole lot. It likes to stop that up, and you got to run a needle through there. Yeah, I mean, you'd be amazed how many people probably already have a little can of it or something in their cars or in their garages. And that's the nice thing about it too. If you spill some oil or spill some paint right quick, spray some of that on there. It'll get it good. But with this stuff here, again, you just kind of decide what kind of direction that you want to go. You know, if you're wanting to put some, you know, around here a little bit to fill in the hole, you know, if you got a little bit of a crack or a hole. And here you want it to be thick, trying to spread it way out. You want to kind of take the edge off of it. And you can just take some of your stuff here and on there. A little extra. And just let it sit there for a little bit, because it'll actually, because it's that, you know, it's designed to soak up whatever that it's on into it. So it pulls that glue up into it. It's not. There is a difference. It is, I believe it's the same basic material, but it's treated different. They don't put any kind of fragrance in this. They get all the dust out of it. So there is a difference. I have used kitty litter. Same thing. I've had people tell, oh, it's just kitty litter, whatever. There is a difference between it. So you can use kitty litter. People do. I don't, because I like this. I don't have to deal with dust. I like the different shapes, and it doesn't smell like cat. So, but after it dries a little bit, first you want to have your little shake off. And then just let her dry. Because we'll go back, and after it's set up for a while, we'll put some gray paint or something on it, and dry brush it, and that will seal it on here. So you'll be good to go. Now I got wrong. But you can always, I'm getting to that, Jeff. Rush me, man. I'm trying to do 2 hours worth here. Be glad you're not in Houston. Got a hurricane again. My wife was working, and she's not. We had to evacuate her for the last one. That was a pain. Yes, like Michael says, cat litter, they don't go in and get the dust out of it, because you're just pouring it into a box and good to go. This stuff, the least, this is an O'Reilly brand, and it has no dust in it. You'll find that if you put paper plates under this or stuff, that way you can kind of reuse it, put it back into whatever. Okay, so now let's talk about, we got to paint them. Yeah, it's hot and muggy and not as bad as it's. All right, guys have watched any of the painter guys, kind of see this is familiar. We're going to have a little paint theory here, a little paint 101. Anytime that I try to paint anything, I try to come up with 3 shades. I have my dark brown, I have something in the middle, and I have something in a light. When they're painted minis, it's the same thing. You got your base, you've got your first highlight, you've got your second highlight. However, whatever colors that you want to use is totally up to you. I use acrylic exterior flat paint. I don't know if exterior or interior makes a difference. I always figured that if exterior was tougher paint because they put it outside. So that was my mythology there for choosing exterior as a you can choose whatever colors that you want. You can go into the stores, you know, they have the walls with all the color chips. You can pick this one, you know, just whatever looks good to you. Just whatever is your heart's desire, how dark, how light you want it. I try to use good paint. So like a Behr or a Giddon or Sherwin-Williams. I use a lot of Sherwin-Williams because we got Sherwin-Williams. Especially for when I get to the green, when we're putting the grass down. The more expensive paint isn't as important here, especially for this base color, because you can always double it, whatever. But in the long run, cheap paint produces cheap results. I've used Walmart brand, I've used a couple of different off ones. Every time I do, I end up regretting it because it doesn't cover, it doesn't do something well, it just doesn't work as well. So, like I said, so pick you 3 of these. I usually get this color by a gallon and get these colors by the quart because these are more of a highlight color, whereas this, everything is going to be painted this color. Now, what I've done here, I've gone ahead and painted a piece with my base color. Now, for this, I used a stencil brush. They're kind of wide, they're stiff, they're really good for this type of painting. 1 inch, like a painter's brush, like you would use on a house or something, well too. You don't want to get too big because you've got to get down here into the creases, okay? You don't have to have a perfect coat here on the top because we're going to put another layer on that and then put the grass on top of that. So you get a little bit of a cheat there. You do want to make sure you get this side good. What I do is if I'm building a lot of terrain, after I cut all this stuff out, I go outside, I take an old sheet of plywood and put it on some sawhorses, put a piece of plastic over it, throw all this terrain and take my Wagner and paint it all at one time. I will literally have a sheet of that stuff covered from one corner to the other. And you want to turn your Wagner or whatever down so that it's not blowing too hard. Naturally, you don't want to do it on a windy day. And they'll move a little bit and they'll get paint on the bottom of them from doing that, but that's okay because that helps make them stay on the deal. And because you've got that plastic under there, because after this dries, you just hit it with your thumb and it'll a little drop sheet of plastic. So like here is, so this is my base color here. I mixed it into some little containers here so they'd be a little easier. But literally, I just take my stencil brush, a little paint on there, start spreading it on there. This may be a little different color, off just a little bit. I had 2 or 3 of them and I was trying to use one. Sometimes I'll get some of this and I'll pour 2 or 3 different ones together because I'm not as worried about it being matchy. So again, I'm going in here, I'm making sure I get all into the creases and get it like that. Yeah, like I said, you can get those basic Wagners for, I think they're 40 or 50 bucks, and you're not worried about them being, you're just spraying. You're just looking for something that'll spray a lot of stuff out. Uh, and that especially if you buy this by the gallon, you can thin it down if you're airbrushing, or I mean, running it through a Wagner especially. Um, I'll take a gallon and probably end up putting a quart of water in it. So I end up with a whole another extra quart of paint to make it go even further. If you get it too watery, if you're brushing it, it starts smearing. So the good thing, when after you cut this styrofoam, it's got texture to it. It's still a little smooth up here, but it'll still. So you just go in and get all your pieces painted. You end up with that. Brush here right quick. I could only find one, so I happened to got them in a. Got all cleaned out of there. Good and dry again. Step. Okay. So next step is we want to put on our first dry brush color. I was out of my medium colors, so I have to cheat a little bit and use a little bit of, got some Reaper Master Series Woodland Brown. Because you have to use quite a bit of it, I wouldn't recommend this as the way that I would go. For a quickie, it's going to get us through the. Okay, so I grab a piece of cardboard like this because this is why I'm going to dry brush this. So what I'm trying to do here is just get a little bit of brown on my brush. So shows up a little better. Spread it out a little bit. I mean, you know, if you guys are painting minis, you know how to do this. And I'm just going in here, covering, I'm trying to hit all the high spots and kind of get kind of blotchy with this. This is where you'll decide what colors you want to use. If you want this to show up more, go a little lighter. If you want it to show up less, go a little darker. It really shows up with the grays, especially if you do go in and do a black wash top of your first color. So we're just trying to go in and break up the edges a little bit. Get some color on there, let it dry. Here's the side I did last night, so it's already dried here. Clean our brush out here again. Okay, and we'll just go a little to our lighter color now. Now, you want to be careful when you're putting the next color on, because if you dry brush the very same way that you just dry brushed, all you're going to do is go over top of what you. So you want to kind of change up, maybe go a different direction a little bit. maybe go a little heavier, maybe kind of splotch it in a little bit. Because if you don't, like I said, you'll just basically go over what you've already got on. But again, you're just trying to hit the, and I try to splotch it on a little bit so that I'm kind of getting it in spots that I didn't necessarily dry brush, so I'm not just covering up. That kind of gives it a mottled look. But that's how I get all the, that's how I do all the sides. I mean, that's everything you see here was done very same way. Just breaks it up. It just keeps it from being so one colored without spending a lot of time, a lot of effort. I believe that CAVBoss is going to end up having to get a stool going forward. Time on. All right, so now we're ready to do some grassing. Now I've got to change my work area up here a little bit, so give me just a second. Move a couple of things around. Where's a Vanna White when you need one? You know? Take care of this. Okay, so now it's time to do some grass. Now, the flocking material that you use, again, there are 10,000 million brands out there. I use Woodland Scenics. It's easy to find. That way it's easy to match up all the time. They do a grass blend and a tan blend. Earth, I think they call it earth blend. Not really earthy, but feel. But it has a little bit of some different colors in it. So this is what I've got here. This is my box of green Woodland Scenics grass. Just keep a big box of it. This is for when I do smaller pieces. I've got a great big box that I do bigger pieces in, but it's just full. I just pour 2 or 3 bags of Woodland Scenics in there. Then I have some of their tan colored stuff as well, their earth blend. Like I said, it's not kind of earthy, but it's got some different colors in it. Little greens, stuff like that. I believe, I don't know if they're still using the same material, but when they started, this was ground up carpet. I don't know if that's what they're still doing now that they've got bigger, if they're doing something different, but that's all it is. If you're interested in making your own flocking, you can. There's a guy named Luke something out of the UK that has 2 or 3 YouTube videos about making your very own flocking out of sawdust. that it works. To me, it's more trouble than it's worth. Just would rather buy the other stuff and go. But this goes back to, I do this a little different than what a lot of people will show you. Lots of people tell you to spray glue down and then spray the flocking down and then spray more glue water on top of it and everything like that. I used to do that. It does work. I think it's 2 or 3 extra steps that you don't have to do. So what I like to do is I get me this is just a little plastic paint tray, get for 89 cents at Lowe's or whatever. And then I get me these little cheapy trim rollers. I like these because I'm tired and I don't feel like cleaning them. I can just throw them in the trash because they're not that, don't cost that much. This one's been used, obviously. You want to make sure too, they rate these by nap. You want a little bit of nap. You don't want a lot. So if it says extra nappy or whatever, you really don't want to use those because the more nappy they are, the more paint it puts on there and it puts more of a texture. So instead of getting, yeah, Luke's APS, and he sells his stuff through the deals, but there's no reason, I mean, not trying to say not to go buy his stuff, but he shows you on YouTube videos how to make flocking. Super easy. It's just get good sawdust, clean it up, sieve it a couple of times, and voila, you've got that. I like the Woodland Scenics because, I don't know, it just seems like it sticks better. It's just preferences. It's up to you. Like I said, there are 10,000 different companies flocking. You want to make sure, though, that you're using ground up flocking and not the little fibers. You'll see the little fibers that you can use like for a static gun, or some of the flocking is real short little fibers. Do not use that. It'll not look good bunched up or laying on. So that's a whole nother episode how to do stuff. Urumba. Yeah. All right, so we've got our little tray here. This is my grass green I use. It's kind of a, not really olive green, but it's not green. So got a little more yellow to it. I pour however much I need in there. And here's where what the difference the green makes is the brighter the green will be on your terrain. So if you are going for a golf course look, you can go with a darker green. If you are a brighter green or a more natural green. If you want it to be a little darker, you can go with like a hunter green. Go with whatever green that you want. Again, this is where cheap paint and good paint goes opposite. Cheap paint does not work for this one, which I'll show you here in a minute why, but good paint just is better. And again, I try to put a little water in it, but I mix it up usually a quart to a gallon to spread it out. You want it to have a little bit of water in there because the water is kind of what makes. So the reason I use these rollers is because I can get a little green on my roller here, which is about, I don't know. Stay on one side. Okay, so I get this loaded up. But why I like it to do it this way is now I can go in here and roll this on right quick, and it just rolls on the top. I don't get it on there so thick that and I don't mind it going over the edge just a little bit. But it just is easy. It's just super easy. I can roll a piece across there and have it voila. Now, the reason I like a little water in it is because that way it stays wet for a little bit. Now, before I put my green grass on here, this is where the art kind of comes into it. And you can use this tan, you can use darker green, you can use browns, whatever colors you want. But you don't want to have that golf course look to it. So what I try to do is go in here first and spread me out some areas. Just a little bit. I'm not trying to go crazy here. Then I take it over here. I get my grass bucket. Set my piece down in there. Like chips out. And then I make sure that there's green everywhere that I painted, and I pile it up on right over the top of the stuff I already put on. So it looks like this. There you go. So it's all covered up in there. And then I just let it sit for a little bit and go to my next piece or whatever. Because right now that watered down grass, that watered down paint is soaking into that grass. And by using the nicer paint, it stays on there. You do not have to go back and do anything else to it after it dries. You let it dry for overnight or, till the next day. But you can see here, all that is paint. You get a little green color on there from the deal, but it's still on there. You don't see where we've run it down to the brown or anything like that. You want to make sure that you have the brown undercoat or some kind of undercoat over it, because if you leave it blue or white or pink or whatever, you will see it through this. It looks like it's 100% covered because of browns underneath it, but don't believe it. You'll see it come through there. So that's the reason why we base coat the whole thing brown. So after it's set here for a minute, come back in here, turn it upside down, tap it off a little bit here, good and done. And then voila, here's my hill. Where I spread that in, the green works into it. And it all makes it look like a nice natural spread. And like I said, you can use darker greens, you can use dark browns, you can use whatever you want in there. However you want to change it up. So you want to make sure though that once you've done this, that you set it somewhere and let it dry. Because if you touch it anywhere, it will just come off. Because it's wet underneath, it has that layer of wet underneath. Now, if I had a piece already together like this and I was going in and to grass it, this is where it gets a little trickier. We're just going to use some brown here right quick. We've got it set up, but when you're putting these pieces together, you need to think about how much time you're going to have to get this painted. Okay, this is one of the reasons I kind of try to keep stuff not always in one big piece, because now I can come in here right quick And of course, this would already be painted brown and I'd be putting green on it. But I can come in here right quick. Put my paint color down. And you don't have to be perfect. Nature is not perfect. You want to try to keep it thick on there because you don't want it to dry before you're ready to put your grass on. But by being able to do it in little parts like this, it is a lot easier to keep from getting lines in it from where you stopped and start. So that way, while it's still wet, now I can go in right quick and put my grass material back on it again. Make sure it goes down into the cracks so it fills in there. Sit for a second, give it a tap. We're kind of rushing through this. This is going to. But that way it's all good and grassed. Now you can go on to the next section if you want to. Now, in the case of where you have a big part and you are needing to work in sections, you do the same thing, but you paint a little over extra from where you started. I could do this all in one time, but I'll show you how we're doing. If you were painting something big, and it's just a matter of you figuring out how long your paint stay wet. So here, what we would do is when we put the grass material on, you don't want to go all the way to the edge. So here, I want to just kind of sprinkle my grass to this point. So I'm leaving a little bit of a brown edge here. And you want to make sure you tip your paint away from the paint where it's still painted. Now that's still wet. I can come in here and start again. Get a little in there, it's not. Why I like these brushes too, tough brushes. But that way, continued on my wet line there. And it's just like coloring with markers. Color with markers or whatever. You always want to kind of keep a wet line and come back to it. Because now when I go in and put my grass again to finish it up, there's no line. So that's the easy way to keep it consistent across there. Now you're looking at this and you're going, well, hey, if you can just paint brown and then put your grass in there, why can't you do that? You can. The reason I don't like to use the brown as my base is because it makes it darker. I like a little bit of a lighter green because that's what a difference the base makes. So that's the reason I use the green that I do, and it's just preference. And it's just easier for me to already have this brown. That way I'm not trying to worry too much about the edge. Clean. And I think these stencil brushes I got from Michael's years ago, I bought like a handful. sure Amazon. I think I looked on Amazon and they didn't have them this big. Hobby Lobby. Maybe I got them at Hobby. They're just really good brushes for terrain. All right. Now here's a piece that I did last night. I'm going to show you earlier. You're talking about doing different kinds of blocking. This is that fiber that I was talking about. Darker green, it's some German company. But I put some green on there, but you can see a noticeable difference. I guess if that's all you use for everything, it wouldn't be so bad. When you mix them together, it looks different. It looks funny. Again, nature is funny, so it doesn't have to be perfect. If you are worried about the grass coming off of it and you want to put a little extra, you can spray at this point a glue water mix. I generally use just Elmer's glue, PVA glue, and I mix it 1 to 10. So 10 parts water to 1 part glue. I get one of the cheapy spray bottles from Walmart or whatever. You can spray all this down, get it nice and wet, and you want to do it after the paint dries. Don't do it while the paint's still. And it will put kind of a matte coat over the top of it, and help seal that down. Again, I don't do it because with the paint that I use, it just stays on there. I've never had a problem with it coming off unless I use cheap paint. I don't know if the cheap paint dries faster or it just doesn't soak in as well, but it's good for what. And then after, if you spray it with that, let it go. Now, at this point, I could come back and I could do some rock. Again, Woodland Scenics makes this plump foliage. But I get a big box of it. I think I've been using this for years. But it comes in all these different sizes. And this is where if you want to come in and the problem that you run into with this stuff though is anywhere that you put it, it makes it harder to stack something on it later. So generally you want to try to stay to the sides. Just put you a dollop of glue where you want one. You can also use the little tufts they make. Those look really cool. Go in there and into that glue a little bit. Let it dry. Voila, you've got little bushes. Again, with the rock, I didn't bring any gray paint up here, but hold on just a minute. Let me go grab one of the gray pieces. Show you kind of how it's walking the gray. Sorry, I've got to run down the steps. I brought 2 or 3 pieces to kind of show you some of the techniques that we've used tonight. Kind of go with talked about when I was talking earlier about the different shapes. Here's a kind of a New Mexico type plateau. Basically here I took a piece and turned it on its side, cut into it, made a thick piece on the bottom. So this would be like a level for cav anyway, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like a level 6, level 7. So good piece to break up line of sight. And this is with I just used the brown stuff because I wanted to keep it more in a Badlands kind of look to it. Now here's a piece that's been painted up with the gray. But you can see where I've gone in with the rock to break that up. Use the greens and the browns. And then the sides are painted the same way, just using 3 shades of gray instead of 3 shades of brown. But you can go in here and you can see here's where I've used some of the little, sure that's good, right enough here as it moves down. Yeah, we'll get it here some. Anyway, it's got some of the little tufts. Here it's got a little rock roadway through here. And again, this is a good centerpiece for putting out in the board. Again, for cav, or if you're doing other games, you can do different levels or whatever. Because we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, you know, this is going to block a lot of line of sight. But you can get just as crazy as you want to get. Here's kind of a they call them a horseshoe valley, or one way in, one way out. But this is set up for, these were some tournament pieces that, so again, you've got tall here for line of sight, but this was actually, you could get in here and use these for a, you could get heavy cover by being against a level 2. You could stand up here, everybody here, get light cover. So, and here, because I did put the rock down first before I did the grass and stuff, because I knew I was going to have so much. But after the brown was done, I put on the rock and then came in and put the gray over to seal it all up. So I've had a couple of little pieces come off where I got it a little heavier or whatever. There's one right there, but that's the wonders of, come back in here, put a little blue on it. Piece of your tree stuff. Instant repair. Or once that dries, it all covered. Here's some more of the little the tufts I've used here with the fatty grass. I'll show you how to make those. You can actually make them a lot faster and a lot cheaper than buy the sheets. It's hard to make. Parchment paper, a little bit of Elmer's glue, static grass. You will have all the tufts that you get. Again, the glue soaks up into the bottom of this, so it doesn't hold it very good right now, but once stuff dries, it's on. All right. So here's what we made today. After all that, that's what we ended up with. But as you saw as we went along, we've got a lot of pieces to do a lot of stuff with. However you want to stack it up. That's one of the things too that I like this type of terrain for. It doesn't have to be perfect. So let's say that you need a level 4 and you don't have a piece. Now you can stack this stuff up. And granted, it doesn't fit exactly, but still makes for a fast, nice hill that's better than 50% of the stuff that's out there. It's not as straight lined as that you made for that, but how are we doing on time? What time is it? Well, thank you, Dave. I've got a lot more. I figured next week that we'll work on trees. That's going to be a good one. I will tell you, I'm not going to tell you how to make trees because you can find them already made, dirt cheap. Especially you can get on Amazon and find trees out of China for a lot cheaper than you can buy them yourself. But we'll show you how we build the tree bases, stuff like that. So. And then each week we'll just pick something new and, depending on how long I think the trees, we might start on some water, roads, stuff like that as we go along. Like I said, I try to build stuff so that it is functional and still try to keep a nice look to it, but it's not going to be as realistic as some of the stuff that you see out there. But the time that you spend and what you'll get out of it. That was the worst thing I found about making really nice boards is they looked great, especially if I went to a convention and I'm trying to set up something kind of unique there. But they get boring quick because usually that stuff is very static. There's not a lot moving it around. The hills stay where the hills are. The river stays where the river is. And after you played it a couple of times, you're like, I never want to play on this board. So I always recommend if you're doing conventions and stuff, to make you a nice board, just for going to shows to show off. But for every day, I don't even bother with making baseboards anymore. They've got so many mats out there for every type of terrain that you can think of. It is so nice just to roll a mat out and then throw my stuff on top of it. I can't even imagine the years I spent trying to move around sections of boards and tearing them up. Then when we're playing, you've got big lines where everything joins together, and I think that takes more away from it, trying to make it look like it's all grassed and realistic. What time is it? Okay, so we've made it till. Yes, well, and that's part of the tray. I want to bring in some of the plastic terrain that we've done. I don't know if anybody's paid particularly attention to this. We are here for the last couple of years. I imported in some TT Combat, some MDF terrain because they did a 10mm line for drop zone commander. So I brought that in so that people would have better availability here in the U.S. too. It's good stuff. We don't have a whole lot of it left, so we're blowing it out the door at 50% off. So if you get some buildings or apartments and stuff like that, there's still plenty of that out there. But we are actually getting it ready to do our own MDF acrylic chipboard line of buildings. There'll be some CAV-centric stuff, but there'll be a lot of stuff. We're not going to stick strictly with 10mm. I figure we'll do 10mm, some 15mm, 28mm stuff, do some sci-fi, some fantasy, some modern. So stay tuned for that. But if you're looking for some cheap 10mm MDF terrain right now, we've got a little bit of the combat stuff because it's gone. So it is. They've done a really good job. Some of it's a little more British looking than what you're used to. So some of it's not as futuristic, I think, as it could be. They did build some of their 10mm to go along with the Adeptus stuff, which is technically 8mm, but it looks okay for it. So you get some of the Gothic look in some of it, but you know, who's to say that on a particular world that they didn't go Gothic? And that's the great thing about sci-fi. You can make it whatever you want to make. I don't know if I'm sure that we will. I know that we're planning on doing some 3D file work as well. That's how we're kind of planning on doing some rivers and stuff like that. So we'll either incorporate that in. We'll either do all MDF or we'll incorporate some 3D printing in there. I know everybody doesn't have availability to it, but there's a lot of people out there that you can take the file, you can buy the file, send the file to them, print you up 20. It's not hard to get done. But we're certainly, any ideas that, you know, anything that anybody's looking, you know, let us know. As we brought in our own laser cutter and everything here, everything will be done at the shop. Keep forgetting that the camera for the tables. Okay. Any more questions before we call it a night? Anything that I need to show again or tell you something, or be glad to throw it out there. All this COVID stuff has certainly messed up my convention some. I haven't built this year. But I am catching up for some other things. Like some books need to be finished. Speaking of CAV, we will have our regular CAV show tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Central Time here on Twitch at TALON Game. That we spend an hour talking about more CAV related stuff. I think we're going to talk about the new campaign system that we're working on, and how that interacts with Flashpoint stuff and the engagement book that we're working on. James, one of my little sidekicks, will be jumping in and helping me talk. So excited. Hopefully we'll do a better job this week of keeping it flowing. But if nobody has any other questions, I think we're going to call it. I think I still got time to catch Taco Tuesday. I do appreciate everybody coming in. So please share the links, tell your friends, tell them to come and follow us and help us grow this channel. We've got a lot of things we want to do with it. Saturday was supposed to be Chris Lewis starting his first sculpting show, his 3D sculpting show. The tablet that he uses for that has had to get sent into the shop, and it has not come back yet. I think we're going to have it in time. So I will be on Saturday, and I will be painting minis. Got some Templar figures that I need to get ready for our campaign game that me and James will be playing during the virtual CAVCon. So if you want to jump in and paint along with me, tell me what I'm doing wrong, or just chat, please do. I think that's 2 o'clock Saturday. Then hopefully the weekend after we'll be back with Chris. So anyway, if there's no more questions, ta-ta. Now I've got to go actually turn it off myself. I have no underling.